This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. I'm back at you this week with another terrific video story, and you can see the title on your screen. Man ghosts cheating wife, and she has a mental meltdown. Now people are blaming him. And as the title indicates, this is a story about a guy who catches his wife cheating and he ghosts her. And when I say he ghosts her, he goes cold turkey and has no further contact with her. This, of course, creates a lot of drama and is driving her crazy. So let's get into the story and see what it's all about. He starts out and he says, 7 months ago, I discovered my wife was having an affair with a middle-aged man. I moved out, cut contact, and filed for divorce. Just like that, 8 years of my life had been wasted and washed down the drain. At the time, my ex was 31 and I was 33, and her drill partner, as I'll call him, was almost 50. I discovered the affair by accident, a result of being in the right place at the right time. I was returning from a business trip a day early, and instead of calling my wife, I decided to drive home and surprise her. So here's another story where the element of surprise reveals a cheater. As I was driving, I noticed my tank was almost empty, so I decided to stop at the next exit to get gas. For reference, this exit was approximately 12 miles from my house. I filled the tank and then started heading back down the road to get on the highway. Each intersection along the way had either a traffic light or a stop sign, so it took forever to get there. I arrived at one such four-way stop and had several cars in front of me. As I sat there waiting my turn, I saw my wife's car emerge from a side street and then drive through the intersection in the direction I was going. Uh-oh. I thought to myself, what the F is she doing over here? I had just spoken to her a couple hours earlier and she didn't mention anything about it. I called her cell and she let it ring 4 times before answering. When she did, she sounded out of breath and disheveled. She asked me what I was doing and she said she was just about to call me. Sure you were. I told her our meetings finished up early and I was on my way home. She sounded happy to hear this and asked when I'd be getting there, giving the impression she was home. I told her I should be there within 15 minutes. I then asked where she was going as I could tell she was driving. She hesitated a moment and then said she was just going to the store. I asked her which one and she said the one that's closest to our house. She was obviously lying as she was now on the highway just a few hundred yards in front of me. I knew at that very moment she was either cheating on me or doing something illegal. If not, why would she lie? I was going to call her out, but decided to play along to see what other lies I could catch her in. I told her I'd meet her at the store and then we could go out to dinner somewhere. I could tell she wasn't expecting me to say that, but she responded saying that sounded great. I then told her I was just passing the rest area, which she just passed. I told her this as I knew it would scare the bejesus out of her when she realized I was right behind her somewhere. She told me she'd wait for me in the parking lot and we ended the call. No sooner than we did, she hit the gas and had to be going over 90 as she sped away. She obviously did this to avoid me seeing her and to ensure she'd arrive at the store before I did. She's probably thinking, whew, man, I almost got caught. When I got there, she was already parked and walked over to my car as I pulled in. She was adjusting her clothes and had her compact mirror out, checking her hair and makeup. When we got in the store, she said she had to go to the restroom. I told her I did too, so we both went in to do our business. I finished up and came out a few minutes later and waited there for her to come out. She stayed in there for at least another 10 to 15 minutes before coming out. When she finally emerged, I told her I was about ready to send in a search party to look for her. She told me, sorry, I had to do a number 2. I know that's TMI, but I'm explaining this because it was another lie as I could hear the sink running the entire time she was in there. I don't think she even used the toilet and instead spent the time cleaning herself up. Yeah, she was probably in there cleaning all that stink and crud off of her from that guy she was just with. We did our shopping and decided to grab some prepared food from the store instead of going out to dinner. When we got home and started eating, I asked her more questions about her day to see what she'd say. She told me nothing remarkable happened, explaining she just went to work and came straight home. With each new lie she told, I became more upset, but managed not to blow up on her. That night I tossed and turned trying to process what she was doing over there. I was restless and wide awake while she slept soundly like she didn't have a care in the world. It's amazing how she could do that. You would think that she would be a nervous wreck, but obviously not. The following evening, while she was preparing dinner, I checked her cell phone but found nothing unusual. I also went online and checked our cell and credit bills, but again found nothing. So he's hitting all kinds of dead ends here. Initially, this gave me a sense of relief, but I realized that didn't necessarily mean she wasn't cheating. It just meant she was good at hiding it. Bingo! By that point, I was getting antsy, but I needed more proof, so I decided to continue investigating. Looking back now, this was definitely the right thing to do. However, it was difficult holding it together and acting normally. A week or so went by and everything was business as usual. Then one day she called and told me she'd be working a little late as it was their monthly close. I didn't say anything, but I was immediately suspicious. Even though she had to work over on occasion, I sensed something was up. I had a strong feeling she wouldn't be working, but instead I'd find her visiting a certain someone on that street where I saw her the previous week. So that afternoon I went over there to see if I could spot her. I arrived around 4:30 and drove up and down the street a couple times but didn't see anything. I decided to go back out to the main intersection and park at the McDonald's to see if I could spot her driving by. Sure enough, at about 4:45 p.m., she drove up to the intersection and turned down the same street. I gave it 10 minutes and then went down the street to see where she was. There I saw her car parked in the driveway of one of the houses beside a new Ram pickup truck. I thought long and hard about going up and banging on the door, but my inner self told me not to, as I was on the verge of exploding at that moment. Instead, I took pictures of her car at the house and then went home. When I got there, I looked up the address to get the name of the homeowner. As it turned out, the owner was the co-owner of a company that did business with her company. So she's mixing it up with one of her customers. According to various websites, he was either 49 or 50 years old and had lived at that address since 2009. I later discovered he was divorced with 2 college-aged children. When she arrived home that evening, she had bags of takeout from my favorite Chinese place in her hands. She greeted me with a big smile and came over for a kiss. I tried getting away with giving her an air kiss, but she insisted on a real one. Listen, guy, there's no way in hell I would have given her a kiss after where she just came from. While we were eating, I told her I had to go out to a customer location the following day and wouldn't be home until the evening. After hearing this, she started asking me for particulars like where I was going, when I was leaving, and when I'd be back. I knew she wanted this info so she could plan another meetup with her drill partner, and it really pissed me off. After I told her the details, she told me not to stop and get anything on my way home because she'd have dinner waiting for me. The thought of that nauseated me, but I knew that dinner wasn't going to happen as I had other plans in store for her. I, of course, had no customer visits planned that day, but I did plan to make a visit to her drill partner's house that day. If I saw her car parked there again, I planned to call and confront her, then move out and not tell her where I was going. Unfortunately or fortunately, things played out as I predicted, and I found her car parked in the same spot as I had the previous day. So I went home, made a hotel reservation, packed my clothes, and then called her. To my surprise, she answered right away and was in an upbeat mood like she was so happy to hear from me. I asked what she was doing, and she said she was just sitting in a conference room working on a spreadsheet. Yeah, you were spreading something, but you weren't working on a computer, let's put it that way. I told her she was lying. I continued on explaining I knew exactly where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. I said she was either effing him right now or had just finished effing him, just like she did yesterday and just like she did the prior week. Boy, I bet that stopped her in her tracks. While I spoke, she didn't say anything. I told her I was done with her and informed her I wouldn't be home when she got there. After that, I called her a few harsh words and ended the call. As you can see, this guy is pulling no punches. He's straight to the point and he knows what he has to do. A good 20 minutes passed before she started calling and texting me like a crazy person. You know why it took her 20 minutes? Because she turned around as soon as you hung up with her and told her affair partner, "Oh my God, my husband knows about us." And for the last 20 minutes, she's been cooking up something in her mind, some kind of excuse that she's going to give you, and now she's ready to talk to you. He goes on, he says, during the 24 hours that followed, she must have left me 50 voicemails and sent me over 100 text messages. You should have blocked her. The messages were all over the board, first saying it wasn't what it looked like and she could explain. After several hours of these messages, she then transitioned to crying and telling me she was so sorry, followed by hours and hours of hysterical crying and begging for my forgiveness. Isn't this kind of what they always do in these cases when they're caught? After I got checked into the hotel that evening, I stopped to have a few drinks at the bar to take the edge off. I didn't have much on my stomach, so the alcohol really hit me. I then went up to my room to call our parents to inform them about what just happened. I was feeling a little loose at that point, so I didn't hold anything back and told them everything. They reacted with complete horror and couldn't believe she'd do something like that. Like me, they thought we had the perfect marriage, but that obviously wasn't the case. Well, you might have had the perfect marriage, but she needed a little more spice in her life. She needed a little more excitement, and I'll talk about that at the end of this story. I ended up staying in hotels for the next few months as I worked through the divorce process. During that time, I avoided all contact with my wife and didn't tell anyone except for my parents where I was, as I didn't want to risk someone telling her. Everyone with the exception of her closest friends were on my side. However, just about everyone told me I should at least meet with her to give her a chance to explain and apologize to me in person. So again, here's the betrayed getting pressure from everyone to at least talk with her. And my question is, why? You don't owe them anything. From the messages she'd been leaving me and from the reports I was getting from mutual friends, I knew she wasn't handling things well. This made her friends put more pressure on me, and even her older sister joined in to gang up on me. They went as far as telling me if something happens to her over this, it would be my fault. Once they pulled that, I politely told them to mind their own business and block their numbers. Good for you. That's what you should have done. Even her parents turned on me, which came as a shock. I was really disappointed with them as we always had such a close relationship before this. Well, her parents, in the end, are going to be loyal to her, so you always have to remember that. Even if you have a great relationship with them, most of the time they're going to side with their daughter. Thankfully, my family and close friends were on my side and supported me throughout this whole ordeal. Long story short, I stayed no contact and had my attorney handle everything. My wife tried fighting the divorce and offered me just about anything I wanted to stay married, but I was done. Once she realized that wasn't happening, she eventually signed the paperwork and things moved quickly after that. Our divorce became final last month. It was a clean break and I'm now a free man. I don't want to give the false impression that I was a tough guy the entire time, because I wasn't. 8 years is a long time to spend with someone. I spent many sleepless nights and had several breakdowns along the way, but I've worked past all that now. My wife still thinks there's a chance we'll get back together one day. She says we're meant to be together and fate will reunite us just like it brought us together in the first place. I can tell you with 100% certainty that will never happen. She still texts me 3 to 4 times a week telling me what she's up to and saying how much she misses me and how sorry she is. I probably should have blocked her, but I kind of enjoy hearing about her struggles and what a great man I am. So he's kind of admitting here he kind of likes seeing her suffer a little bit, which, you can't blame him after what she did to him. As for her drill partner, I can't say too much there other than my attorney is working with his attorney on something right now. I'll just leave that there and let you fill in the blanks. Now listen to this. My ex told me he meant nothing to her and she cut all contact with him, but I really don't care anymore. So that's what happened to me and how I handled it. Not saying what I did was good or bad or right or wrong. I shared this so other men know they are not alone in this struggle. Many of us have gone through the same and have come out better on the other side. And that's the end of the story. And I think this guy handled the situation like a boss. As soon as he suspected she was cheating, he did his homework, he confirmed she was cheating, then he confronted her, he left her immediately, he moved out to a hotel, he stopped communicating with her, he did all of his communications through the attorney, he filed for divorce. and he's now moved on with his life. So I can't see too many missteps that he made. Now, maybe along the way he missed some red flags here and there, but overall I think this guy handled it terrifically. Now I want to take a look at some of the comments he received, but before we do that, I want to remind you, if you like what you've heard so far, make sure you hit that like button. That will help get this video seen across the world and also help out the channel tremendously. Now let's take a look at some of those comments. The first one is from a woman. She says, "You admit you're still reading her text but refuse to meet with her. Why do this unless you're trying to destroy her mentally? What she did was wrong, but she's human, like we all are." She goes on, she says, "I had a boyfriend in college who I was in love with and planned to marry." Well, what did you do? Let's find out here. "He broke up with me over a date I went on without telling him. He found out and never spoke to me again. I know what I did was wrong, but I had no intentions of ending our relationship." She says, "I've never gotten over it, mostly because of the way he handled things." No, you never have gotten over it because you cheated on him and he isn't forgiving you. Next, here's a response from a guy. He says, "Always do what's best for you and stop listening to others. If you already made up your mind that there was no turning back, then why waste time meeting with her? I went through a divorce years ago and it was a total cluster. If I could do it over, I'd handle things the way you did." Yeah, when you ghost them, it really simplifies things a lot, doesn't it? And finally, we've got another response from a woman. She says, "You don't owe her a damn thing. Closure is for the cheater, while the betrayed gets nothing from it. I granted my cheating husband a final meeting. Looking back now, I wish I hadn't, as all it did was make him feel better and made me feel like shit," she says. So that's a sample of the responses he got back. And surprisingly, the majority of the responses, I think more than 50%, were from people saying, "Well, you've been together for 8 years. This seems like one misstep she made. Maybe you want to give her another chance." A lot of people were saying, well, give her like a trial period, give it 6 months and to see if you can move on. And then if you can't, divorce her. But I think he did the right thing. Once somebody betrays you like this, you got to cut bait. And now I want to take a look at what I think are the morals of the story. The first one: most affairs eventually get exposed. Now, there's probably some people that have gone to their grave and no one ever found out that they cheated on their spouse or their boyfriend or their girlfriend. But I think that's the exception. So if you're even thinking about an affair, just know at some point you're going to get caught and you're going to have to pay the piper. Next, drop in unexpected every once in a while. How many of these stories have we gone over where the husband or the boyfriend or the fiance comes home early for some reason or the other and catches his woman in the act, or in this case, like this guy, catches her somewhere where she shouldn't be, and then he connects the dots and finds out that she was cheating on him. So what I'm saying here, guys, is do the unexpected every once in a while just to check up on things. Next, never employ violence. I've said this over and over. In these kind of situations, never employ violence unless it's for self-defense or in the defense of others. Cheaters are not worth risking your safety and freedom over. Next, and this is an important one, don't be a father figure to your woman. Now, I've said this before, and I've gotten some feedback from guys that have said, well, you've got to be a father figure in some level to her because you're her protector, you're her provider, you're her rock. And yes, all those things are true. But what I'm saying is you don't want her viewing you as a father figure, because in society, by nature, women look for men that are like their father to settle down with. And oftentimes that's with a nice guy. And that's instilled in them by their parents. I mean, oftentimes when they were growing up, they probably were dating some guys that their parents didn't like. And they were probably told, oh, stay away from that guy. He's trouble. You need to go out and find a nice boy, or you need to go out and find a nice guy. And that's typically what many of them will do. But oftentimes once they get into those marriages, then they find out, man, this guy just doesn't get my juices flowing. And people who have a proclivity to cheat then will look outside the marriage. Also, they may marry a guy that they really have the hots for. But with every marriage or with every relationship, over time, things kind of settle down and you kind of get into the routine of daily life and it gets a little boring. And again, if she has that trait of being a cheater, then she may look outside the marriage for that satisfaction. So guys, that's my warning to you. Don't be a father figure to your woman. Next, ghosting is almost always the best way to handle a cheater. The only exception is if you have children together under the age of 18. Then, of course, you're going to have to continue communicating for the children. But outside of that, ghosting is almost always the best way to go. And finally, a man's value increases with age, so he can always recover. He can always start over, no matter what age he is. And those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story, and how do you think this guy handled it? Would you have done what he did, or would you have done something completely different? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you